Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well. Elliot here. Welcome back to the Fragrance Well. Been away for a while. I've just been very busy, been traveling a ton. I just got back yesterday, so I can finally get back to making some videos for you guys. So, some of you are already getting winter temps or winter weather, so let's go ahead and do a winter fragrances video. Now I know I live in Florida, so it's like, hey, what do I know about winter weather? I know plenty about winter weather. I just came from it and I wasn't born here. But nevertheless, I've got plenty of fragrances in my cabinet that are great for the winter that I do wear here. Some of them I even wear in the summer. And I've got 10 of them for you today. I didn't rank them, just some of the best ones in my cabinet, or at least some that I think are great for this list. I've got plenty. So before we get started, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and hit that bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. Alright guys, let's go ahead and get it started. First of all, from the house of Jean Paul Gaultier, this is Male Elixir. Jean Paul Gaultier's Male Elixir. So this is their latest release as far as I know, unless they come out with another one that I don't know about. Definitely the one I would call the most appropriate winter Male flanker, if you will, that kind of stays true to the original Male DNA. Still has that lavender mint combination that's, more relative to the original Male release, but this one adds a pretty big amount of tonka bean and benzoin, kind of a vanilla smell to it. It's very rich, dense. I think it's very well done. I love the fact that you still have that original Male DNA in there, but it's just kind of hanging around, but the feature is definitely going to be that benzoin and that tonka bean. Relatively simple fragrance. I don't think it really goes through a lot of changes. Certainly powerful, as most Male fragrances are. Definitely has the power to cut through that cold weather, so I think this is a great winter choice, and I would wear it outside of winter too, but it definitely works, I think, the best in the wintertime. Once again, from the house of Jean Paul Gaultier, this is Male Elixir. Alright guys, next one's coming from the house of Xerjoff. This is Naxos. Xerjoff, Naxos. So you guys know Naxos. I mean, this is probably one of the most popular fragrances within the community for winter and fall, to be honest. And honestly, I think it works great for springtime too. May not be one you want to spray heavy in warmer temperatures, but it definitely has enough thickness to it, enough cut to really get through some cold temperatures. So this is a tobacco fragrance first and foremost. Got that honey tobacco vibe to it, a little bit of lavender up in the opening, giving it a little bit of a uniqueness because it does have, or should I say a uniqueness from Mugler's Pure Havane, because this is basically their version of a Pure Havane fragrance, but Pure Havane doesn't have any lavender or anything like that. This is a little bit smoother, it's less smoky, a little bit denser, a more refined sweetness to it. And I think it's a great one for the winter months, and obviously most people in the community agree because, like I said, it's one of the most popular. Once again, from the house of Xerjoff, this is Naxos. Alright, so the next one's coming from the house of Mason Francis Kurkdjian. This is Oud Satin Mood, the Extrait de Parfum. Oud Satin Mood, Extrait de Parfum. I do think the EDP could go in this list as well. They pretty much work for the same occasions or seasons as we're talking about in this video. You guys know this one well, very popular scent. Oud and rose fragrance. I think there's more rose being featured in this than there is oud. There is also a lot of vanilla, a lot of sweetness to it. A little bit of spice from some Ceylon cinnamon. This is the perfect cold weather, night out, date night fragrance, evening occasion fragrance. I will admit this one's kind of fallen down on my list because, let's just say, I've come into contact with some better rose and oud combinations. More on that in a different video. But nevertheless, this is still a good choice. I mean, it's not, because I've smelled better things, so to speak, doesn't mean that this now sucks. I just think there's better stuff. But this is easily still one of the most well-known oud and rose combinations that, the oud is not overly funky. It's, you call it wearable, if you will. And this is a very thick, dense, jammy, syrupy rose fragrance. So definitely works for that winter temperatures. It'll cut through it easily. So once again, from the house of Mason Francis Kurkdjian, this is Oud Satin Mood, Extrait de Parfum. All right, we got one more from the house of Mason Francis Kurkdjian. We've got Grand Soir. Mason Francis Kurkdjian Grand Soir. Now, I would say out of the fragrances that you can still buy today, the ones that are available, this is the best winter-centered fragrance from Mason Francis Kurkdjian, in my opinion. Amber scent, very rich and decadent amber scent, supported with some labdanum and some tonka bean in there. Quite a bit of benzoin as well, gives it kind of a dustiness to it. There's just this hint of spice kind of sitting on the top of it, even though there's not necessarily a spicy accord or note listed on the note breakdown, but it's definitely there. Beautiful scent. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. For many, it's probably one of the favorites, if not the favorite, from the Mason Francis Kurkdjian fragrance line. And every time I feature this fragrance, I think the bottle is a little bit more empty. That's because my wife is wearing the absolute crap out of this. We're eventually gonna have to go ahead and get the bigger bottle. But that's neither here nor there. Great winter fragrance from the house of MFK. Once again, this is Grand Soir. All right, guys, next one's coming from the house of Dior, and we've got Dior Homme Parfum. Dior Homme Parfum, one of the most popular designer scents on the market. Beautiful, creamy, rich, iris, powdery iris, sweet iris, supported with a awesome leatheriness to it, a little bit of a woodsiness to it, relatively simplified but thickened up version of the original Dior Homme. Many people do like Intense over this one as their favorite. That even could just be because of availability. I do think this is the best iteration because the leather in this is what I really like the most. Great winter scent. This will easily cut through the cold. Great longevity on this, great projection. You don't need a lot of sprays to make it work. At least for most people, they get, great performance out of it. And if you are a fan of iris scents, I'm not gonna call it a must-have. I am gonna say it's one, if you can get your hands on it, you wanna check out, it's probably gonna be worth it if you do like iris scents, in my opinion. So once again, from the house of Dior, this is Dior Homme Parfum. Okay, next one's coming from the house of Arabian Oud. This is Resala. Arabian Oud's Resala. Another very popular one from the house. A lot of people know about this fragrance. So this is a Oud, rose, and saffron combination fragrance, but it primarily features chocolate. It's got some chocolate and vanilla in addition to those notes, and it pretty much is a slightly gourmand, very chocolatey take on an Oud rose saffron fragrance. A little bit of a rough opening, in my opinion, as saffron can be a little bit screechy once this fragrance is first sprayed on, but give it about 10-15 minutes. That settles down, and then you get that chocolatey oud rose combination, mixing it with a little bit of vanilla. It's very rich and delicious smelling in the air, but I would say this is more of a chocolate fragrance more than it is an oud rose fragrance. But beyond all that, it easily will last for most people all day, and definitely has enough power to get through the cold. So I think this is a great winter scent option. Once again, from Arabian Oud, this is Resala. All right, guys, next one's coming from the house of Mancera. I've got Amber Fever. Mancera, Amber Fever. So this is a new addition for me. Got this a couple of weeks ago. Have worn it a couple of times, so I'm not 100% familiar with it, but I get what it's offering. So it's an amber fragrance, obviously, but it's got a lot of sweet accords in it, sweet notes. Kind of has a little bit of a candied vibe to it. There's a caramel kind of vibe in here that I think is really nice. There's a little bit of a booziness off of the top. I wouldn't really call it a boozy fragrance, but you do get that element in there. And for me, more so than amber, when you kind of get deep into the dry down, there's a lot of musk in this fragrance. So I would say it's not the best representation of amber in my opinion, but the amberiness is there. And overall, it's a very nice fragrance. I think it is unisex. I would say this is straight up and down the line unisex. Men that kind of like scents like this can definitely wear them. So I do like it on myself, but I think I would especially like this on my wife. So just kind of keep that in mind. But nevertheless, I've only worn this when it was cold. We've had some cold weather kind of on and off down here in Florida, and I wore this on a day when it was definitely cold here. And then I went up to the panhandle where they actually get cold temperatures. And this fragrance was cutting through the cold very nicely. I didn't have a lot of sprays on. It did get on my clothes, and it took a minute for it to come out. So there is that. But definitely a good option for a winter scent if you want something a little bit on the sweeter side. So once again, from the house of Mancera, this is Amber Fever. All right, next one's coming from the house of Nashane. This is Ani. Nashane Ani. So this one's very popular as well. Most people, I think, are definitely have this kind of in their favorite rotation, or at least at one point did, for their winter scents, if you will. I've talked about how when I first got this fragrance, I was kind of on the fence about it, and it was slowly warming up to me, but it wasn't until I actually wore this in some cold weather that I really started to like it. And ever since I've smelled it since then, I like it more and more and more. And it's kind of right on that line of me really liking it to loving it. Great vanilla scent. Love the spice profile it has. I like the kind of green notes that it has when you first spray it on, and just some nice clean woods to kind of round it out, so to speak. I would say this is a refined sweet fragrance, although if you spray it heavily, it's gonna just be really, really sweet. But definitely has the power to cut through the cold. Extrait de Parfum, so it has some denseness to it, has some staying power. Great winter scent in my opinion. So once again, from the house of Nishane, this is Ani. Next up, coming from the house of Amouage, this is Interlude Man. Amouage's Interlude Man. So this is for my guys that like smoky scents. I mean, this is a very smoky fragrance. Has some leatheriness to it, a very woody base to it. A little bit of resins, there's some spice, that infamous oregano note in the opening, which not everybody likes, but I don't have any problem with whatsoever. More so, fragrance is definitely thick enough and powerful enough to cut through some intense cold weather. I would say, you do need to be a fan of smoky, resinous, woody scents, definitely with a Middle Eastern flair to them. If you were actually going to wear it, I think this fragrance is a masterpiece in my opinion. But if you do like those type of scents, this is obviously a great winter option. I wear it in warm weather, I just don't spray it as heavy. But definitely can work for those cold temperatures. Certainly is gonna cut through them and have some lasting power in that kind of weather. So once again, from the house of Amouage, this is Interlude Man. All right, and last but certainly not least, from the house of Chanel, this is Le Lion de Chanel. Le Lion de Chanel, or the Lion. This one here is very resinous, has a lot of spice along with that resinous that it has, resinous nature that it has. Primarily going to be labdanum. There's a little bit of vanilla to balance it out just a bit, but it's pretty much labdanum, sandalwood, and patchouli. That famous, or at least I like to call it famous, sandalwood that is relative to a lot of Chanel fragrances. A little bit of lemony citrus touch to it off the top to, kind of give it a little bit of a brightness, but it's you're pretty much smelling labdanum. And it does get a little bit animalic in this fragrance. It's very strong and very pungent, but more importantly, this fragrance here packs a punch and will easily cut through some cold weather. I have worn it a few times now. I've worn it in slightly warmer temperatures and cold temperatures. It'll definitely get the job done in some winter scents. So great winter fragrance if you like fragrances of that caliber that have a little bit more of an edge to them. So once again, from the house of Chanel, this is Le Lion de Chanel. All right, guys, that is it for this video. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what are some of your favorite winter fragrances. I look forward to hearing what you guys share. I appreciate you all watching all the way until the end. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.